Now, does this seem like a Yellow Pages thing to do? Not really, right? Because digital transformation is like a buzzword that everyone uses, but it doesn't really mean anything. So I'm going to spend just giving you some examples of how we've changed over the past 2-3 years and why YPG is actually coming back and we're a really cool company. So who are we? You know who we are. You get the Yellow Pages directory, but we're also the biggest websites in Canada. Does everyone like that? Because, come on, Alan's lonely over there. All right, cool. We have tons of brands, things like Red Flag Deals, things like, which is the largest deals site, Mediative, which is our ad agency, and we partner with Google and some of the biggest websites out there in terms of user-generated content. All right, so that's kind of interesting. What's our purpose? We're powering the new neighborhood. We're helping local businesses connect to customers, okay? And that's kind of interesting because we're talking about local businesses, small businesses in your neighborhood. Okay, so it's a kind of an aspirational thing, not to help necessarily all the big guys win, but help the little guys win. Now, what is digital transformation? Who knows the frequency that you have to sample a digital, an analog signal at in order to replicate it without loss? No one? The Nyquist frequency? Infinity. Yeah, I guess infinity. Loss, you're actually absolutely right. But the analogy I'm going to use here is in an analog world with print directories, when you transform to a digital world, you got to do more work. It used to be everyone would go to the Yellow Pages and just kind of look up a business, figure out what's going on in their neighborhood, and that was kind of it. But that's not true today, right? You got to go everywhere. There's a lot of different sources of information. So that's kind of the metaphor of what we're doing. Now, this is kind of the way we originally approached moving into the digital world. That's not funny. I mean, little laugh, right? So let's slap on a bunch of stuff on our existing systems and platforms and technology and pray to God that, you know, the web goes away or mobile's not that important. That's classic, right? You look a little scared. That's classic, right? That's the classic innovator's dilemma. Right? You have a really cool product that makes you a lot of money that everyone uses, and something comes along that disrupts it. And the first reaction is to kind of ignore it, right? And that's what the Yellow Pages industry did pretty much for a very, very long time. What's interesting is, as you know, we're kind of in the post-web world right now. Our query volumes on mobile and tablet devices are higher than the web. And that's true for everyone. That's true for Google. That's true for Facebook. The traffic is moving completely away from the web. So it's almost like that transformation has occurred in the last 10 years, and we missed the first transformation, but what the hell, we're going to hit the second one. So what did we do? We took our existing systems and added, come on, a little ooh and ah for the animation. Ooh. We took all of our existing systems and added all these features to kind of shoehorn them into working in a digital world. And we generated a massive amount of debt. So this happens in a lot of places. So things like I have system A, system B, I write system C to interface them, right? That's true in corporate America in general, and it generally produces this, all right? Just a pile of crap. And why is the pile, just a large pile of junk is not necessarily that bad if you're getting what you want done, but because you don't know how things work, you can't move forward. I change something over here, and there's this huge unintended consequence over here. And so when you try to launch or do anything new, you can't, okay? And that's kind of what happened to us. So obviously, we needed some change. Now, change is interesting as kind of a general topic. It's not just technology. It's how you do stuff, the processes, it's the people that you have, it's the culture you try to build, okay? And the hardest part, the parts of change, the corporate culture and how you interact with your employees and how you deal with the outside world is like one of the most important things about changing an organization. Team culture as part of that. Tech standards, obviously, we have to also innovate, and you have to be accountable for stuff. And I think cool tech every once in a while helps, right? You do some fun stuff not on ancient platforms. And of course, urgency. Now, what happens when you want to change? Okay, you got the iceberg, right? Anyone ever read Who Moved My Cheese, kind of the classic book on change? People fear change, right? And when they fear change, they might not say, well, hell no, we're not doing that, but they'll do other stuff. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We have to evaluate this. We can't do it that fast. It might break something, right? That's the sort of resistance you get, and the worst type of resistance is passive-aggressive resistance, right? So you've got to realize that even if you've got the best objectives and you figure out the best architecture and the technologies, you've got a team that you've got to build that has to embrace it. And that's kind of the biggest part of it. So I'm going to talk about around 7 or 8 things that we did at YPG that really accelerated change, okay? And some of them are obvious and some of them, well, I think they're all obvious, but some of them are maybe potentially a little bit more subtle. So the first thing was, like a lot of big-time old corporations with massive IT teams, everything was waterfall, right? Somebody walks in with their BRD and their PRD and their FRD and their MOUSE and, and they walk in with this stack of paper that they work on for 3 or 4 months, and then they go hand it to some poor engineer, and they're like, go build this, right? Does that ever really work? Can you ever specify all the intricacies of complex consumer interactions or even internal interactions that way? I guess you can, but it's highly inefficient. So what we did was a little more agile. I couldn't quite find the right picture for agile. So this is kind of flexible agile. And what does that really mean? That means all this crap goes away. And this is actually one of our team rooms right now. In fact, it's whose team room? Your team room. You didn't know I was taking a picture. So we've done that pretty much throughout all of the consumer side of the organization, all of the mobile apps that we build, all of the websites that we build, and we're pushing it through into the enterprise apps as well. So that's kind of one thing that really helped. So instead of meetings like this, you have stand-ups every morning, right? It's very exciting. I mean, what's weird about a culture where you're not actually doing anything and everyone's standing up and talking about what they're working on every day, just that in and of itself gets people moving and excited. The other intended benefit of that is this is all Scrum-based agile, so the product owners are actually there, the marketing product owners. They were used to writing big documents, throw them over the wall, and going to sleep for 6 months, right? Now they have to work every day. Oops. Just like us. The other benefit of this is it's like, I just built what you told me to build, and it becomes more of a team that's achieving cool stuff, launching new apps, launching new platforms. You like that? That's not me. Second part of the transformation was, as a large organization, we had a typical technical operations team, which I think this is from the 50s. Right? Okay, let's plan out capacity for the next year. We'll get 3 months, we'll get this in, and 3 months later we'll get this in. Very, very common, like help desk mentality, put a request in, we'll see if we get it. Is that really going to work as we're deploying new platforms and applications quickly? Not really. So what ended up happening was there was a corporate IT function, and everyone else was on Amazon with thousands of instances doing whatever the hell they needed to do. So it was kind of chaos, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. People are going to find some way to get done what they have to get done, okay? But just jump straight to Devops, okay? Now this is probably the second most overused term besides agile, right? I'm talking about true DevOps. We're talking about automation. We're talking about configuration management. We're talking about continuous release cycles through automation. So we're not spending our time looking at bare iron. We're actually using a lot of tools and techniques to take the ops thing out of the equation. So we're not sitting around 3 weeks waiting for an environment for QA to test stuff. It's just all there, and it's all very dynamic. It's run by a guy named Alain Garamick, who was, I think, here a couple of days ago. And so it's a very, very exciting team because we're using this approach for all these enormous websites. What else did we do? Well, we allowed our users, like consumers and internal users, to test our applications. There was no QA. Now, QA, it was more of a quality control sort of environment. And the distinction is quality control is like, all right, it's out there, let's look at the defect rate as opposed to build quality in, okay? So instead of that, we're using a lot of automated testing now, including our new search engine that we rolled out, our mobile applications, based on Selenium, and then tools like Crucible and Fisheye to allow us to look across all the repositories to figure out what's going on in the code base, and Crucible more to do code reviews, which was new, right? So when we're documenting things, this was the typical way that we used to do it, right? We would have lots of issues, lots of feature requests, whatever. And, little things like, hey, can everyone just use Jira? And by the way, can we use a version of Jira that's not 5 years old? Who lives with that sort of stuff? It's like, just use the tool, okay, and just have it updated, and then all of a sudden, good things will start to happen, and, in terms of Confluence, in terms of documenting what you're doing. Now, I'm talking a lot about tools here. It's never tools, but if you start with little things like that, like if it ain't in Jira, we don't do it, then all of a sudden, all the chaos starts going away. You can actually prioritize stories and backlog, right? As opposed to, this shit just doesn't work, and I don't want to deal with it. Anyone know what this is? It's a Vannevar Bush. Does that ring a bell? It was a guy in 1946 who actually conceptualized the first search engine as a document retrieval system for a library. He called it Memex, okay? So that was our search engine, basically. And we're a local search business. We had a custom search engine from a vendor that was not tunable. It was kind of, the relevance was okay. And so we implemented, in a couple of months, Solr, open source. Solr, Lucene, Doug Cutting, open text search, and then Nutch, which was the open source search engine. And then out of Nutch and a variety of things came Hadoop, okay, when MapReduce came out. And then Solr is the evolution of all that. So it's an open source Java-based search engine. So we've replaced the search engine of one of the highest search sites, well, the second highest search site behind Google in Canada. What other things have we done? This looks like a Windows 3.1 picture, doesn't it? It's awesome. In terms of how we were delivering data to our internal and external consumers, it was very, very kind of three-tier, a bunch of SQL servers and what have you. And we migrated it to a huge event store, an ETL platform based on Hadoop, using a columnar database called InfoBright. Columnar databases, instead of putting the row records in a block, it puts the columns in a block, which means that you can do column aggregations really, really quickly, which is awesome if you're doing analytics. And we're going to be using TIBCO business events to actually look at real-time data flows to figure out how to tune the interface for a specific consumer. So lots of exciting stuff in the analytics universe. That's not ours, really. I just found it on the web somewhere. But that's not too far off what our systems integration approach was. As I said, System A, System B, System C interfaces them. We've completely standardized now. TIBCO is a strategic partner of ours. It's not open source. We pay money for it. We pay for support for it. But the suite of things that they gave us were incredible, from business process to SOA. So, final thing, we used to never do training, okay, which was kind of bad. Now we got guys like Uncle Bob coming out, telling us how to code, which is pretty cool. And I'll just zip through this and say, we're hiring. Okay, of course, sorry, foul for self-promotion here. But we are hiring. We've got 100 open positions at YPG, and we're doing really cool stuff. So I cannot believe no one threw a dart at Alan. I mean, come on, somebody's got to throw one. Ooh. All right, thank you very much.